I kept trying to make these bigger and bigger pots, and I would put more and more clay on the wheel, and they wouldn't get any bigger, they just get thicker. And so my undergraduate professor said, you know, Mr. MacDonald, can I suggest something? And I said, sure, Mr. Gilliam. What? He said, well, you know, if you can't throw a big pot, then you throw a bunch of small pots and you stack them one on top of the other. And so he showed me how to make a section pot. And I'm going to demonstrate that. Those covered jars, those storage jars that are kind of like melon shaped, were made in this way. This is going to be a small version of it. Let's see. So to start out, I usually make them in two pieces, and sometimes I add just a very short third piece at the top to form the shoulder and the gallery for the lid. Center this. So to start out, I usually make them in two pieces, and sometimes I add just a very short third piece at the top to form the shoulder and the gallery for the lid. Center this. So if you know that the shape that you want to make is roughly hemispherical, I mean spherical, then basically all you need to do is make two bowl shapes and put one on top of the other. Invert one on top of the other. So what I'm going to attempt to do. So I want to try to keep this lip maybe just a little bit thicker than the wall below it, because this is where the joint is going to be. And I want to have enough clay there so I can really compress the joint without making the wall too thin. So I just try to keep that a little on the thick side. And see if I can shape this. Alright, so now I cut this at a slight angle to increase the amount of surface to make the joint, and also to make a better fit. Now I put them together while they're relatively soft. They're still soft enough. They're firm enough so that the bottom piece is not going to collapse when I put the top piece on it, but still soft enough so that I can make adjustments, and I'll still continue to expand that form out once I get the top part in place. So I usually throw this part with a bottom, even though I'm going to cut it off eventually. But I've had a couple of instances, especially with large pieces, things that are about that diameter, flipping them over and they've fallen off the back. And so just, keeping a bottom in them will give them just more surface area to form a suction. Well, also, you know, the suction, if this was just a ring, then the only surface forming the suction would be whatever surface there is at the base of this ring. But if it has a bottom in it, then it's forming a suction all the way across the bottom, which gives it a greater tendency to want to stay on the back when you flip it over. So, and this I can throw a little bit thinner, so it's going to be maybe a bit more than half. The joint is going to be a bit lower than halfway up. I like to make separate lids. I've never really found any kind of lid that I cut from the pot to be interesting to me. You know, maybe I just haven't worked hard enough at trying to figure that out. But I prefer to make the lid separately. Let's see where we are in terms of diameter. Okay, that's gotten too wide. I'm just lubricating the sidewall. I put water here on the left, runs down the inside and the outside, so I'm really not trying to lubricate this surface so much as to make certain that there's an equal amount of moisture on the inside and the outside surfaces. And it's easier to do it that way, or more efficient, I think, to do it that way than to try and do it by saturating the sponge and spreading it on that. I always try to remember to measure it before I take it off the wheel. So this is pretty close. Coiling and throwing is, you know, depending upon the size of the piece you're working on, it's kind of tedious too. You know, and the pot only grows in very small increments, and it's hard to get this sense of, you know, a fluid curve happening if you're only moving in small increments. You know, so, but mostly it's a matter of being more efficient. This is a little bit smaller than that, which is fine. Fine, maybe about a 16th of an inch smaller. Well, maybe I'll Well, I still use hair dryers. It depends upon how desperate I am in terms of getting this thing dry fast. I have a hair dryer, and I also have a couple of heat guns and infrared lamps as well. I usually set them aside to dry for a while. During the summer, things dry very slowly in my studio, so I don't even have a damp box. Sometimes when I demonstrate it to my wheel throwing classes at SU, I would tell them I'm about to do a demonstration, and I'm not sure if it's going to be a demonstration of what to do or what not to do. I just want to make this a little damp, not slippery, and then I'll score it. Lightly seal the joint so that the air inside helps to support the form. Then I draw a line here so that I'll know where I started. when I cut through. At this point, I just want to use pressure to help seal the joint. I just angle it because it creates a larger surface area to make a joint, and it tends to make it have less of a tendency for the section to slip apart when they're kind of butted together. If they're kind of butted together, there's a possibility that they'll slip or slide across each other. But if one is inside the other, they kind of lock each other into place. And you know, you don't have to be exact with the angle. You know, the angle on the bottom doesn't have to be exactly the same as the angle on the top part, as long as they're close. Okay, so I'm going to set this aside. I might always get greedy and try to do stuff before. Ready? I might just thin this out a little bit. Before I let it stiffen up. They will let this stiffen up, especially the joint, allow the moisture, the extra moisture in the joint to dissipate, and so that it's about the same consistency as the clay on either side of it. And then I'll start stretching it out into a form. Also give this lip here an opportunity to stiffen up a little bit, and if it isn't stiffened up by the time I get around to shaping it, I'll use a heat gun on this, because I want to try and keep it in while I expand the lower part of it out. So maybe this afternoon. So now I'm ready to, this is firmed up enough, still pretty soft down here, but I'm ready now to see if I can expand this out a little bit.
Feel when you move across that seam, or is it pretty much disappeared now?
I really can't feel it. Sometimes I can see just a faint, shadow of it, but I think it's pretty much gone. I can't see it.
I can see it.
You can see it?
No, I can't.
Oh, you can't. And by the time I decorate this and carve it instead of stick up like that seam, even if I could see a faint image of it, it would probably disappear. So, at a point down there, we just leave this, see, make sure that this is symmetrical, the opening symmetrical, and I'll probably wind up putting just a really short cylinder. Maybe a cylinder about that high on here so I can close the shoulder without fear of running out of play. So let's put this back there.